Hey guys, Pete Ramsey here for Kelley McKay, coming at you on the next live video podcast. And we're going to keep it real today. We're going to talk about HVAC. Kelley, what's going on?
HVAC business.
I stand corrected.
For the most part, yeah. Not much is going on, Pete. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. In spite, it was a long day. Started really early. I had some new customers come in. We're doing some exciting things, and hadn't drove me to drinking yet. It's close, but
Yeah.
pretty good. Pretty good. How about you?
I mean, nothing super exciting. I got one of my, I don't know what you call them, molars or whatever, pulled, a few. I probably talked about it on one of our podcasts because I was in a lot of pain.
And I got this hangnail, so we should compare. No, I remember. Okay, we talked about that last time.
Only about 2 days ago. This is like I want to say the 7th of last month that I got this pulled.
Okay.
I kid you not. And then I did get my teeth cleaned on like the 8th this month, but that had nothing to do with it. My gum is just now not being sore for like maybe 2 days. So it's been like over a month.
Well, I was reading a statistic that the body heals slower as it ages.
Sure.
Boom. Yeah, I hear you. I'm sorry you went through that, bro. I know you didn't feel good on our last conversation, which is over 2 weeks ago. So
I'm like, I've torn, ligaments and ripped part of my chest away, and like I've had all kinds of injuries, but I'm pretty tough. Overall, but man,
did you do the bench press pec rip? Seriously? Or was that something else?
I was in a crawl space, actually. I was in a crawl space, and the refrigerant line was coming up through we were replacing a system, and the unit was in the closet. And so I can't remember what I was doing. I was probably running the refrigerant line. So I stubbed the refrigerant line up through the hole that we had cut in the floor, or that was already existing probably. And here was my joist.
Yeah.
To straighten it out so it would come up through the hole straight.
Right.
So I reached my hand out, my hand out like this to shove it up against that piece of wood.
Right.
So it would straighten up. And when I did that, it tore away.
Yeah. That's a strange angle to be pressing. Yeah.
My hand was out in front of me like this, and I went like this real hard, and it just ripped. Sound like Velcro.
Oh, goodness. I didn't need to hear that. Okay. Yeah, I can't get that out of my head.
My shoulder started killing me, and I jumped out of the crawl space and went to the bathroom, peeled my shirt off, and I couldn't see anything. But then by that evening, my biceps started bruising up.
Yeah. All of mine were cut.
A couple days later, I finally went to the doctor because it wasn't getting better.
Well, that's what we do. We put it off.
Yeah.
I can't relate to that particular one, but all mine were cuts and burns, I think. Cuts and burns. About lost my throat. I put the return in. The guy back then, this is a long time ago, you could frame it in with sheetrock and plywood, and so that's what you did, and so he wanted metal, and it was already installed, and so I flashed metal in, and I'm just going, you know how you do, you're like, I gotta go, and I'm running with my Makita. That's what we used back then, and I had the wrong angle, and it went like that, and buddy, it cut the skin, the tendon, all the way to the bone, and I was lucky. So I had to
what you're describing, I literally on my left hand right here.
Right.
I did the same. It wasn't that, but so yeah, the way mine happened was I was I had a piece of duct, and I was, working exactly like you're saying, like I'm trying to get this done.
Yeah.
Getting mad at me because I'm taking too long because I was one guy in a truck, and it reduced, like the trunk, I had it reducing.
Okay.
And so I needed to, put one of those reducer things on there. I'm not a duct guy, but like you
let it when you talk technical.
You know what I'm talking about.
Reducer thing. Yeah, I know that.
Well, I went to in order to make this work, I had to snip some of the the S lock, the part, not the S lock, but the drive side.
Yeah.
So the drive side, I needed to cut down some of that.
Okay.
I go to cut that, and it was under pressure because I had the ducts pushed together with S-lock.
Right.
And as soon as I cut through that cleat or whatever you want to call it, where the drive slides onto, there was so much pressure under it that the metal literally popped out and ripped.
Wow.
Because it was under pressure, and it caught my thumb when that happened.
That's
Forever I couldn't bend like my thumb.
Yeah, it won't go back as far. Yeah.
Go straight.
I think mine was normal.
You know, it wouldn't bend backwards like that.
You guys at home.
Yes.
No, but it's funny. You said it happened to you before, it happened to me before. So
yeah,
that one created a scar that way. And a few years prior, I had the exact same thing. So I got an X scar in the same spot where when I was young and inexperienced, I had a crescent wrench and I'm torquing it was some type of a sensor on my Audi Fox, my little car back when I was in the Army. And the shroud for the fan for the radiator was just that metal. And you know, an adjustable wrench doesn't hang on very good, and it went right into there. It was cold. It was so cold that it turned white, and wouldn't bleed. You know, it was one of those days.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I told you about getting burned. It was
Oh
so
yeah. I've never had my head burned. You beat me on that one.
Yeah.
Any guys got burnt in the face by reaching in and laying your face on something?
We talked about that. I don't want to even talk about it because it's seriously, no kidding, probably 30 times that's happened to me. So, it's embarrassing. but I'm real particular on being able to see all of my welds, because the best leak detector is visual.
Yeah, but you didn't carry the little mirror.
You can tell if you have a leak or not.
You didn't have the telescopic mirror where you can go in the back?
I did, but I would still be like this, down on the ground, like searching around. Yeah. And there'd be times where I didn't have my mirror, or I didn't grab it out of my bag because I thought I can just look at this.
You couldn't find it. To be honest, you couldn't find it.
You know? Yeah. Or I broke it. You know, I stepped on it.
Oh yeah, well yeah, they broke all the time. Yeah. Oh yeah. My son's sending me pictures of his stuff now. You know, and he does a pretty good job. But you know, if any guys have father son, maybe you guys are sons or the fathers, but there's a little bit of a competition that goes on that. He's doing his best to outdo the old man. Don't think it's going to happen anytime soon, but hey, you know, if anybody's going to whoop me, I'd rather be him. But yeah, you bring back some good memories. So HVAC business, right?
Right. Yeah.
So I'm talking to a customer today, and I'm telling you, I'm a business coach for heating and air conditioning contractors, and we talk about that business. It has converted into, I am a, oh gosh, the word just escaped me. I can't believe that. It's converted into therapy. And so because we speak the same language, right? I'm telling you, he'll spend half the session talking about what a crap, you won't believe this customer. And Bob's been on every job ahead of him, you know, side job Bob. And so, the customer's awesome. Okay, this is business. He's a great guy. Yeah. I love the guy. You know, we've been working together, you know, probably close to 2 years now. And he, you know, when you're that long, you know, you're like friends and everything else. But he just vents, and he was telling me, you won't believe what this customer did. You know, I go through this and I go through that. And anyway, but it does this kind of stuff. You and I were talking about beforehand, the frustrations that we have with our prospects that ultimately don't become customers, because customers are customers. Doesn't matter what business you're in. You got some that they're difficult, right? But in the heating and air business, in the actual contracting side, in dealing with customers, sometimes it jades you. Sometimes it can affect your attitude. And you alluded to something earlier, and this is it's not the same, but we know how important a mindset is. We know, you know, success and attitude. And you talked about inconsistencies to others, which are by extension are to yourself. Do you remember talking about that? I forget the way you worded it.
Yeah, you're confusing me. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Inconsistencies as far as just not showing up.
Is doing what you said you're going to do.
Yeah, not doing the work, not doing.
No. I promise you I'd call you, and I don't. or I promise myself I'm gonna stop smoking and I don't, or whatever. And how those types of things can affect the mindset, because it also can affect your reputation. So
well, you stop trusting yourself, for one thing. When you say you're going to do something, you don't do it. You stop trusting yourself. Other people stop trusting you. You lose lack of respect. You're probably tired, confused. You feel fatigued because there's an internal conflict going on internally of like, I'm gonna do this, and then you don't do it. So you just start to lose the confidence in yourself and what you're capable of. So it's really like a downward spiral. You just, the best thing to do is to not say, I'm going to do something.
Yes.
If you're not dead serious about doing it, if you're going to do it, by all means say it, but then you got to follow through. You can't, I mean, we're all guilty of this to some degree, but when it comes to, that's the thing too, is if you're not going to do it, then stop complaining, whining and moaning and groaning about it, so that's the other side of it. If you're not going to do something about it, then there's no more complaining, no more excuse making.
Well, yeah. And it's funny, men tend to want to resolve the issue, and a woman will talk about, I'm dealing with this, and we're all looking for the solution. Well, all you gotta do is this, right? And they get mad at us because women just want to be heard. They don't necessarily, they want you to feel that feeling with them and go experience that with them. But we men are like, no, just answer just nip it in the bud, deal with it, here's the solution. Until it comes to our own lives. sometimes
men just want to be heard too, because
as
soon as you speak about the problems that you're having or the challenge that you're facing,
yes,
it immediately begins to subside. The power that it holds over you, it helps, it can be very beneficial to get it off your chest. And you just sometimes you just got to complain about stuff, so.
Yeah. Pressure builds up.
Yep.
It gets to a point, the pressure relief valve release that pressure. That's a good thing with negative pressure. But what if you've got this pressure building up? I'm going to start my business one day. I'm going to do it. And it's building inside of you, and you start telling everybody about it. It has the same. I learned this a long time ago.
Well, that's the thing. You're telling people about it, but you're not doing it. So that's.
But yes. And the reason you're not doing it is you're taking that energy that wants to go somewhere, and you're venting it through verbal regurgitation as opposed to action. And my dad taught me that before he passed away. He said, stop talking about it, son. You're abusing, you're wasting the energy that could be. I forget, he worded it in his simple, very intelligent, yet very to the point and simple. And I don't know.
And I'll agree with that, as if you aren't taking action. That's the only time I'll agree with that, as like not talk about it.
But yeah, that's true. That's true as well.
On the other hand, if you're taking action, people want to help you. Like, so I'm all about like share. There's a bunch of stories in like the book, this book right here, Success Principles. There's a whole bunch of stories about, it's one of the success principles about, ask for help or say it, something like that. And man, when you put it out there, other people,
that's true.
They hear it and they're like, there's lots of great stories about I think it was a basketball coach. He made a whole bunch of declarations, like a bucket list, and he shared those with the team. And many, many years later, these guys are like, hey, coach, I know that was on your list, that you wanted to fly a fighter jet. I'm actually going to base. I'm going to be base in your area, and I've got a buddy who wants to take us up in a fighter jet. Do you want to come? Like, wow. These things happen if you just tell people about it.
Yeah, you put it out there. That's a good example. I like that. Yeah. But that's a little bit different. That's accountability when you put yourself out and say, I'm going to achieve, such and such. What Dad was referring to in our case was just, dreaming out loud and wasting that energy. And there's also a reciprocal of that first example of not being true to yourself and so that downward spiral, you start to believe in yourself. You start to doubt yourself more and more, believe in yourself. I don't know if I can do this. I don't know. As opposed to setting up your day with, I'm going to set this goal today, and it's going to be really easy, but I'm going to do it. And then I'm going to check that off my list, and then I do another one. I check it. You, through small successes, reverse that whole flow. So that there's always two sides to this kind of stuff, guys. And I love what you said, but I just want to throw that other angle in there, because any of you guys are suffering with self-doubt, imposter syndrome. I don't know. Can I charge that much? Because I'm just an employee. You're darn right you can, right? Your boss is charging for your time, and customers are listening to you, and they're believing in you, and you too can do that. I mean, Kelley, when you started your business, how did your technical competence compare to after you've been in business for 5 years? Would you say that you had it all together when you started, or you still had some stuff to work on?
I started lots of stuff. I mean, I had been doing service calls for like 12 years. So I had a good foundation, and I had installed a few units.
Yeah.
So service, I felt pretty comfortable on. And honestly, in the first 2 or 3 years, I got lots of opportunities to like fix units on this. It was a catering company, and they were renting an old building, and those units were all old, and more than half of them on the building were not working. And I was able to get those units up and running just by troubleshooting. So I was pretty good at troubleshooting and service, but install, no
experience. But there was an area that,
yes,
yeah, you had to fill that in. And I was a pretty good technician too, because I did refrigeration. I did supermarket stuff. So I felt really good. I didn't have that many years experience, but I was well down the road. But yeah, my first installation was for myself. I mean, I'd been on jobs, and my first, I did a full rough-in with a gas pack. It was for a friend, and I'm just went in there, and I got bits and pieces from working, with other companies and helping out on other jobs. But first one was mine. Did the load calc on my set. Well, didn't really have to do one on that one, but that's how you do it. So when you're stepping out there, you're not going to know it all. But if you can get the answers, thank you, Google or Chat GPT or whatever, if you can get the answers, then, and that's kind of hard on Google, but it's not what you know or what you don't know, it's what you get done that people are paying for. And well, that's not true either. There's a lot of what you know, but the point is, if you have the resources and you can leverage those, it's just as good, because I mean, how many technicians are out there and they're having to call their service manager to get a little bit of help, and so it's part of the process. Yeah. That's all.
I had people that I could call, of course, and after 12 years doing business working for other people in the same area, like I knew all the sales reps from all the different suppliers in town. So, of course, you got to use your resources. That's for sure. You get stuck on something, and there's always something out there that, just throws you for a loop. It's just part of it. And then you just collect a little another tiny nugget of information here and another tiny nugget of information there, and take notes. I kept notes in my my work folder.
Sure. Well, there's a point that happens, and I can remember 2 separate incidents. There's my Southern's kicking in. 2 separate incidents that put me over in that mindset shift. And I went from working and not being sure and trusting that veteran tech to, and asking, is everything good or whatever. And I shifted over to, if I'm ever working with anybody, I double check their work. And I don't trust them. You shift from leaning on somebody else to, I don't trust nobody except for myself. And I'm checking because after you get burner time or 2, that happens. And so with me, I'm on a package unit, and this junior guy was on the other side. Hey, you got this? Yep. Got that? Yep. And we go, and there's a call back. I get my butt chewed because I I've been around a little longer. And or this one here. This was a big one. I told the story to somebody. Hopefully, I hadn't told it to you. Startup. They called me out to do a startup on a 7.5 ton jewelry store. Condenser units up on the roof. It had remember they did the oil trap thing going down the wall. Downstairs, big all 3-phase equipment, big air handler. And we do the startup. I'm on the rooftop, and the pressure's low. And at this point, I'm still a little on the green side. And we had those radios, and I called, and this head supervisor for the installation department, we're talking a guy in his 50s, gray in his hair, very confident. And I said, "Hey, can you check that blower rotation on the blower? I got something's wrong with suction pressure." And he goes, "Yep, it's going right. It's going the right way." And I'm like, "My gosh!" I said, "Maybe did they missize the duct? It's, and the main tech was around, and I called for some help, and he had to come in, and he said, "You checked the blower?" I said, "Yeah, John checked it." And he went down there, changed the leads, kicked it right, everything went right back to normal. And I felt so stupid. But I said, I'll never trust somebody else again. I'll go check it myself. But when you make that transition, you're ready. You're ready.
Your ability to diagnose something, whether it's on the phone or on a walkie-talkie, is only as good as the information that people give you.
Amen.
If they give you a bunch of bogus ass information, like, you're not gonna. It's gonna be really hard. Usually, if you're asking for 2 or 3 more things, and you're explaining, like, it's really easy to quickly tell if somebody's not giving you the full truth.
Well, yeah, if you're a veteran, you can pick right up on it. My tech support guy back in my Linux days, he had that saying. He said, my gauges have a bunch of numbers on it, but nowhere does that needle point to the word good. What is your suction pressure? Because they just said, "Oh, it's good."
Right.
And or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And so, but he wants that exact data, and that's why.
Where is that on my gauges?
Yeah,
good.
Yeah, exactly. But he, it was the same thing. He got tired of that same old, these people are calling for help, and they don't check anything, or they don't check with, they don't know what they're looking at.
Well, I'll tell you what, when you got a guy who doesn't need to be on your team, or a gal for that matter, who does not need to be on your team, who's in the field, because you have them check all this stuff, they'll quit calling you, because they don't want to go through the rigors of what it's going to take to figure out what's actually going on. Instead, they'll try to leave the customer's house and then let you know once they make it back to the shop. Yeah. So if that starts happening in your business, I can tell you right now, you get the wrong person on your team. You need somebody who, get those guys off your team. I'm not joking around with this. I've had it up to here with crappy people on my team.
Kelly, that's probably a really good transition into a very important topic. I mean, right now, if I could sell a recipe for finding a good candidate to be a service tech, they don't even have to know what they're doing yet, but somebody's got the attitude, they've got the key things in place. Oh my gosh, I'd be a rich man. But everybody seems to be running into, and I know this is a generational and a cultural thing, and technology, and bad parent, or I should say, new school parenting. I don't, and I know old school's had its negative stuff too. Don't get me wrong, but you're having to teach these men what their parents should have taught them in some cases, and they think because they're present, they're working. They're not. They don't know how to work, so they get the phone thing going or whatever, and and the list goes on and on. But finding good candidates to, good technicians is really proven difficult for people who want to grow their business, because I hear it all the time. I'm ready to go to the next level. I'm tired. I need somebody to come in here and relieve me of this work. And you hire them, and your workload is increased because now you got to babysit somebody, go behind them and go clean up their mess and all kind of stuff.
But when there's nobody else in your market searching for a job, I'm telling you, it's what drives me crazy is the people who are in big, robust markets who they don't know what it's like in rural Midwest America. They don't know what it's like in other parts of the country. And so they may think that, oh, there's plenty of people to choose from. Well, I'm here to tell you there absolutely is not.
Interesting.
So it completely, the market matters like dramatically. And it doesn't matter how well you pay in certain parts of the country, it doesn't matter. It can be very difficult to, now you could attract and get some talent, not talent, I shouldn't call it talent, but people with no experience, with maybe the right attitude and things like that. Like you can definitely attract that if you pay well enough. Because even these guys, they want $20-$25 per hour starting out, no experience.
Well, they
really
do.
hard.
Yeah, you get one, you're at one hand and, in the other, but
Yeah.
doesn't the recruiting of people who are not in our industry over into our industry, doesn't that need to be addressed? Because look, okay, you and I were business owners, and we know what we were looking at candidate, but the community college or trade school would recruit anything that could fog a mirror because they just wanted their money, get them through their class, knowing that they're pushing out the other side. Somebody that's they're never going to get a company to hire them because they just don't have what it takes.
I literally just talked to a business owner today who hired somebody out of school, and he literally called the school and gave them a piece of his mind. I thought that was, I'm like, man, somebody needs to. Good for you.
Yeah,
because they're just pumping people out. They don't care if they know anything at all. And this you ought to be able to wire a basic thermostat coming out of school, and that was
you ought to do a lot more than that.
Yeah,
but you're right, and they don't. I did teach at two community colleges, one in one county and one in the neighboring county, and I think I taught code in one, and I taught basic electricity in another one. But that was one of my favorite jobs. But it was nighttime. See, I ran my business in the day, and I taught at night to supplement my income because I just started. And it was great because these are all people who were adult men that worked, and they were looking to go into another industry, and they would pay attention. And we get out there in that lab, and I would, like, how you do the plywood with the circuits and the little light bulbs that would indicate, a load or whatever. We'd wire that stuff, and I'd put troubleshoot. They just love that. And but I did not teach the kids straight out of high school during the day classes. I can imagine what a challenge that would have been even way back then, but especially.
So that's one things that you can do in your community to make sure that you have a bench full of people that are ready to play, is you've got to have, there's trade schools everywhere. So I've got a guy who's, he'll watch this because he always watches our podcast. But
yeah, we're talking about you, whoever you are.
Yeah, and he's got a great, he's given back to his community. He gave the local trade school. He loaned them a pipe threader, or gave them a pipe threader.
Oh wow!
And he got in good with the school, and that's just brilliant. That's
that's smart. I get it. Yeah.
Like they had a career day where it wasn't like an actual career day. It was like a, role playing interview sessions, and he actually got to go there and be like the business to listen to these students, do like mock interviews with him. So what better way to get to know like your candidates and who you want to offer a job to or not than to be the actual mentor. And he's also went in and taught classes. So these trade schools, a lot of them will welcome somebody to come in who wants to teach a class for the guys and the gals that are in the class. So by all means, but when you're introverted, like I know with business, you have to be somewhat extroverted, like you're kind of forced to do that. But once we got to a certain place, revenue wise, and so many employees, the last thing I wanted to do was go and that's probably a downfall of something I could have done better for sure. Looking back, is like put myself out there more. So that's one thing. I didn't go do what I'm saying to do, even though I know how valuable that is. I know how valuable it is because I'm seeing it in action.
Yeah. Well, yeah, hindsight, we'd all do things differently back then, but go ahead.
Another thing too, Pete, is that people want to complain about not finding anybody, but what are they doing to find somebody?
That's what I was gonna say. They
They're
don't
not
look.
doing anything. You have to make that at least spend I don't know, 20% of your time a week. If you really need help, well, you're gonna have to spend 20% of your time just searching for help. Whether that means creating flyers to go talk to all the supply houses and leave the supply houses, or
Yeah.
posting on the job boards and posting on Facebook and wherever else you can get the word out that you're hiring. And it needs to be a group effort too. Your other employees can
I like
help.
that.
Do like a recruiting. This was something I learned at one of the coaching things. They did like a recruiting thing to where, and I did this too. I bought cards for everybody. They were recruiting cards. And so everybody in the company got a handful of recruitment cards. And then when you hand them out, if somebody happens to come in and happens to be liked and happens to get hired, well, then the person who referred them will if they stay for 90 days, or you can break it up, do $1,000 bonus, $500 if they actually get hired, $500 if they stay for past the 90-day probationary period. So you can do all kinds of things like that just to help spread the word, to get people, to hopefully. I mean, it's just like advertising your business. If you don't talk about it, then how's anyone going to know you exist?
Sure.
If you don't talk about it and post stuff and always be looking, how's anybody going to know you're hiring?
Yeah. And if you're looking for that 1 in a million, then you interview 3 people, it's never going to happen. So you gotta play the numbers. And if you just run an ad and say, well, nobody called, and you give up, you got to try other, platforms. Get creative, like Kelly says. And but yeah, it is a challenge. And there was a book. There were several versions actually called Guerrilla Marketing, and it talks about all these really creative ways that you can get customers. I love that, Kelly. Why can't we have guerrilla marketing for employees and integrate it into our culture and
100%. Ask every
compensate?
customer. Have everybody make it part of your checklist on service calls.
Yeah,
Hey, we're always hiring. Would you happen, Mr. Pete, would you happen to know anybody who's looking for a job? If you do, please send them my way. Here's one of my cards.
Hey, I got this one for you. I was wondering what your funniest interview was, and one of the guys in one of our mastermind groups said the guy's mom came to the interview.
Yeah,
guy's mom came to the interview and was helping him because of whatever.
I've had some bizarre interviews, but
yeah. Well, I think back, I was at my son's first interview, so his dad was there, but he had just graduated from it was summertime, and one of my big accounts in Fort Lauderdale back in the day. I knew the guys, and they were looking for somebody to work in the back. Yes. Yeah. And so he came, I sit there and listened, and I was so proud of him. I mean, he was 17 years old, and he was considering and asking these, he's a man now. He'll be 33 this year, but he's a good kid. Oh my gosh. I couldn't have done better. I don't know where it came from, but man, what a good kid. And I had him as a guest over on one of our owners mastermind groups. The guys went nuts because he's a technician now. And they're like, well, what are you looking for? What does it take? And he says, yeah, I'm looking for incentive. The company I work for, they won't commission because they don't want to, encourage the wrong behavior of people out, like these other companies out there. And I get that, don't get me wrong, but they put him in a pickle where he can't make enough money. We'll do you a bonus if we make certain money, and we'll decide how much. So he's not in control of his financial future. So when you start hearing it back from somebody who will actually speak up what your employees are truly thinking, it's pretty sobering. You think they love you and you think they're staying, and all of a sudden somebody gives their notice or they just quit without enough. It really is important to keep your finger on that pulse.
There's a lot of studies on, not a lot, but I mean, I just read a book on drive, like not emotional, intrinsic motivation.
Okay.
So they took like these three groups of kids, and they they split them up. In the first group, they said, hey, if we're going to, here's some markers, to color with, and there's the paper. If you go ahead and color and draw, here's what we're going to give you. You're going to get this, we're going to get this reward. Okay. Right. And it comes with this pretty blue ribbon, and it's got your name on it, and it's a certificate, right? That was group one. Group two was, hey, do you want to color? Here's the stuff. There you go. Go ahead and color if you want. They were going to get a reward, but they weren't told that they were going to get a reward. Okay. Right? That's group two. Group three, no reward, no nothing. Basically, here's some colors, go color. And so there was no expectation, no nothing. And 2 weeks later, they brought these kids in and just secretly watched them, and they set it all up the same way. They set out their markers, and it was like free time, free period in school. Well, the first group showed far less interest in coloring and drawing a picture or anything. The other two groups just acted normal. They did the same thing they did before. And so that's just one point. And there's few other studies on this too, is that if you give somebody an if-then, that's what he calls it. Like, if you do this.
That's computer language, by the way.
What's that?
That's computer language. I took computers back in college, and if this happens, then that. If then, that's computer language. But I'm sorry, okay, well, you were talking about something important.
Computer language. It's like it's a reward system. If you do, and our entire industry, that's like, it's carrot and stick. It's carrot and stick. It's like, you're going to do this if you want to get this, and so.
Or if you touch the stove, then you're going to be sorry because it's going to hurt, right? So the carrot and the stick. No, yeah, that's a good point.
What they found is to use now that. So it's like, okay, I give you a project, Pete, or I give you a goal.
Okay.
And that's it. You have a goal. You're not getting anything for it. This is what we're shooting for as a team. We need to hit this. If we hit that, or we complete the project, or whatever the case, well, then it's no big deal for me to come in and say, now that we've done an awesome job and we actually hit the deadline and we did a great job, now let's throw a company party. So like, now that this has been done, we can actually do something. So doing it that way is much more productive, because we all have internal drives. And as soon as it becomes a reward system of if then, what happens is you take something that used to be play for somebody,
and it turns it into
work. You turned it into like, oh, now I have to do this to get paid, blah blah blah. And
it changes the meaning. That's a good one, man. I like that.
Meaning. Yeah, it
never
completely
thought about that.
It's bizarre to me, because you're still going to have people who are just motivated by money, and that's me. I'm motivated by money.
Well, sometimes here's the thing:
once their basic needs are met, I should say. A lot of people aren't once their basic needs are met. If somebody's basic needs are not met, if they can't pay all their bills at home, then they will continue to either strive to learn more, or they'll quit. One or the other.
Yeah. And that's where I was going to. So, when we were talking about that, on the mastermind group, we've got somebody that here's got, 3 years in the industry. He's stuck. He wants to get married and provide, and there's just not enough money there. And he wants to be in control of his own financials. But that is a different intrinsic drive, if you think about it, because there's, we're not all falling in the same category here. There's multiple motivations for, and certainly external factors like, all your basic needs met, but there's other things as well. And I read a book called The 1 Minute Manager many years ago, and that's where I learned the quadrant of motivation and how different people have to be motivated differently. And this was just based on the stage of where they were within everything from brand new and don't know anything to, as a veteran, and, and how that motivation has to be, stimulated by management, encouragement in different ways, and
autonomy
in different ways. So I can't remember the word for it, but it was something like this: there's nothing any more unfair than to treat unequals equally. Something like that. And so different people require different motivations, and so treating everybody the same feels like it's a fair thing to do, but it's not.
Meritocracy. That's what
Plutocracy.
I call it meritocracy. Isn't that what it's called? It's Jack Welch. That was like one of his things.
Oh, was it? GE.
It's like, if people who do get rewarded for it. I'm all about that,
Well, life, there's a lot of universal truths that apply, but when you're really young, you don't understand all of those. And I remember working at the Pizza Hut, one of my earlier jobs, and they had these skinny windows about this wide, real tall, and it was slow. So the boss sends me out to clean the windows, and I got the squeegee, and I'm going all the way around. Well, one of the windows had a family sitting there eating. And I'm just so young and ignorant. I'm like, I go and I'm squirting. There's a little kid. I'm squirting at him through the window, and then I'm doing this, and I move on, And my boss come out and chewed my butt. He says, "You don't do that when the customer's sitting there eating. You leave them alone to eat." And I'm like, "I didn't know," and I didn't. I'm just a dumb kid, inexperienced kid, and you don't know until you know. And when you listen, when you're a kid, those parents. There's two different types of parents. When you do something wrong, one of them, "What's wrong with you? Do you not see this?" And it just, it's traumatizing sometimes for a little kid because, they expect me to know this thing that I just don't know, versus that parent that says, "Now, Kelly, I know you're sitting down, but you see the little old lady standing there? She looks so tired. You think you could give up your seat? I bet she could use it a lot more than you, as young as you are, as strong as you are." And you jump up, "Man, you want my seat?" Okay. And so and
then you reinforce that behavior.
Yeah. And so that's, guys, that's what it's like being a boss. Just FYI. you just want to, what's wrong? Do you not see what's going on here? Right. But
I talk with a lot of young business owners too, and I'll ask them the question like, do you ever want to exit someday or something? And sometimes they'll say, "Well, I don't know why anybody would want to exit. Like if you build a business, it's working for you and blah, blah, blah." And I'm like, and anymore on these calls, by the way, if I've ever talked to you and you're watching this and it's been 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock on a Friday when I've had 5 or 6 other people.
Yeah, man. Yeah. It's a lot of energy.
I'm out of patience by the time I get to you. So I apologize because I'm normally a really nice guy, but, I'm just blunt with them at this point because, for one, every day you're in business, it's a risk. There's no question about it. You're taking a risk. You get sued, you get hurt. Like there's so many things that can go wrong. And that's why you're an entrepreneur, because you're willing to take that risk. That's why so many people aren't willing to take that risk, So, but that's part of it. And just know the bigger you get, the bigger the target is. So you have to be that much more protected. So you need to be meeting with your insurance agent every single year to make sure your coverage is good in all aspects of the business. Buy some umbrella policies, all that stuff. But the hardest part about the business, where, the idea for every business owner is to get to a point where you don't really need to be there anymore. That's the goal. And it's hard to even envision that right now when you first get started, because you're so full of, energy, and you're so full of excitement, and you're looking towards the future. But after 14, 15, 20, 25 years of that, or hell, even 8 years of that, of being worn down, getting your heart ripped out, having your gut stomped on over and over and over again. I'm not saying it happens to everybody, but it certainly happened to me a lot. And it was mainly because I didn't know what I was doing. And so you don't just get over those things. Some of them are, some of them hurt pretty bad. So I'm just saying, people are the hardest part about the business. And so it's all about getting the best, most qualified, best attitude people on your team as possible.
Yeah. Yeah. Getting something to work with is, you don't want to bring damaged goods in and try to work with that. Start with the best you can work with. But you said something earlier that reminded me of this guy. He wrote a book. But okay, you were talking about the risks that come with being a business owner. And I remember thinking,
McKay? You wrote a book.
Kelley McKay wrote a book.
And
so, he's got a couple of them. That's what I hear.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
But no, it was talking about the risk, and the thought was that's why the owners make the big bucks and the employees don't, because you're the one that's assuming all the risk. The business caves in, the employees, they go get another job, no liability. Owners, that's you.
Could lose everything. Yeah.
And so when you're looking at some of these jobs, if it does assume a greater risk, we consider more than just input. Let's say what your direct costs are to determine a price. Because I'm hearing a lot about, they're overcharging, they're ripping people off. Well, maybe they are, but maybe they're not, because when it boils down to it, a fair price is what two people come to an agreement on. And, this one has this problem, this one has this solution, and they come together. And if at the end of the transaction, you both shake hands and both of you say thank you, it's because you got what you wanted out of that at a level that you were comfortable with. And so understanding that different things have greater value. If you go change a thermostat that, let's say, 15-minute repair task, if that's what it is, just boom, take it off and come back, and you charge $500. I'm just making a number up, guys. Don't hold me to the price. But based on your overhead, what you've got to have per hour and everything else, versus you go out and technically just change a wire nut because you had to find the electrical and you found some corrosion, you strip all that back, replace those the wire nuts, and weatherproof them, whatever you do. You got the same time, you got the same overhead, you got the same vehicle expenses, you got the same whatever, but yet change a wire nut, you're going to charge me, let's say the same thing less the direct cost, $350 or whatever. I can see this. So
I don't even get a look at the wire nut. At least with a thermostat, they get a look at it.
But the point is that consumers' value is important. And we either have to improve upon that or we have to adjust to it, because, but Mr. Customer, I spent all this money and I had all this time invested. I don't care. I don't care what you spent. What I care is what I get. And that's the way life works. And so when you have something of greater value, like your equipment replacement, that's your opportunity to make your margins, because you're not going to make the same margins, in preventive maintenance than you are in equipment replacement, right? And it's obvious to us, but this is why things work the way they are. And so building that value is huge, but understanding how that works is even bigger. And so, you don't just charge based on what it costs you, but you have to factor in the customer's value, your personal risk, your business risk, and the liability that could come with that later. I was talking to one of my customers just today. He said, I did this job during the slow season at that discount level because I was hungry for work. And here I am in my prime season going back and fixing stuff from way back then. And now I'm wishing I didn't do it. Right. So it's you have to factor all this stuff in. I didn't mean to go too far off track there, but
no, part of your cost, and which is just the cost of doing business. And part of the reason why we have to be charging what we have to charge is because not every job goes right, period.
Really?
That's inevitable. That's absolutely inevitable. If there's one thing, it's like there's three things you can count on is death, taxes, and not all jobs going smoothly. So that's it's
Kelley
gonna happen.
McKay. I remember that quote right there. Okay. No, and I think we got to remind ourselves of that sometime. I had a customer the other day. He was so mad at Bob, side job Bob, because all he does is go behind and clean this mess up and this, that, and that. And he's so mad that all this stuff is going on. And I told him, I said, dude, side job Bob is providing a 30-year business. You ought to be shaking his hand. He's keeping you busy. He's making you money. And he says, man, I never thought about it like that, you know? And so we know it's like if you're in a car wreck. If I ask you right now, is it possible, is it probable that you'll never ever have a fender bender in your life? And well, no, you know, somebody can, there's things out of your control, whatever. So when it happens, why act like it never should have? You know it's going to happen. Once it happens, hey, there it goes. I got the problem, you know, I got my accident every 10 years out of the way. Let's move on. When you have that call back, when you have that job don't go right, hey, just like Pete and Kelley said, yeah, they're going to happen. Here's mine. Rearview mirror. Let's move on, you know, and don't let it ruin your day or your attitude.
Yeah, I think like you said, what you were just saying right there. I know I've told the story before, but I'll change it up just a little bit because this is how it works.
Yeah.
This is how it works in our industry.
Okay.
Is technician, let's say he gets a call after hours, right? And he says, hey boss, can I go run over here to my aunt's house? She's not having any cooling. Boss says, yeah, no problem. Go ahead and take the truck. Just let me know what you use. Hey boss, I used a run capacitor. Here's the money for it. Thanks so much for letting me take care of that. I put a little money in the gas tank for you too. Thanks so much. Yeah, great. You know, 6 months pass by. Now his best friend calls him after hours. And it's hey boss, can I use the truck? Sure. He goes and whatever, needs a pound of refrigerant. You know, he's like, I guess, you know, I'll go ahead and tell the boss about it. You know, he tells him, goes ahead. Maybe it was a whole pound that he used. Instead, he just says, I'm just going to call it a half pound. And I changed his filter. I used one of ours, but I actually used one that, you know, I actually used one of ours, but I'm going to say that my best friend had a filter. I had him run up to Walmart and grab one. So now he just pays you for a half pound. By the next time this happens, they're saying, they're like, man, I make so much money for this company, blah, blah, blah. And now they don't even call you. Go ask you to run the call. And then they go out and they act like you owe them this because of all the hard work they've done. The entitlement sets in. And this is, I mean, this could actually be over a 3 to 5 year period, but I've seen this happen so many times, over and over and over and over. As they climb the ladder and start making more and more money, the sense of entitlement sets in, and all of a sudden there's no appreciation anymore, no respect. And it's what Dan Kennedy says, like, because Dan Kennedy is like a marketer guy, and he's like, he races horses, like not your like the horse with the carts, like that's where they ride in the little carts behind.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
I don't know what they call it, but he did that for years.
The buggy races or something like that. Yeah, carriage. Yeah.
You know, all horses go lame eventually. Like something happens, they go lame. They break
the stride. Yeah, it's over.
You got to put them down if they get too hurt. Like,
yeah,
like just so. But anyhow, this is his philosophy with employees: is they go lame. And I'm telling you, I have to agree. I'm sorry, but I have to agree. It will take a very special person to not go lame, to actually stay appreciative, and to keep striving for more and to keep learning, it's a very special person. So if you get one of those people, better take darn good care of them.
Put them down. If you get one of the
Don't put them down. No,
no, I'm talking about
up.
I was talking about the lame ones. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking about maybe not letting it. My grandpa told me the story one time. If you give a guy and you give him $20 on a Friday, and then, wow, thank you, and then the next week you drop by and give him $20. Oh man, I appreciate this. It's really coming in handy. And you do it again. He said after about the 5th or 6th week, and you stop coming, they're going to come to you and say, "Where's my money?" So that there's something that happens in that entitlement. And so if you nip it from the very beginning, I was leading up to this story, and it never starts. I remember assuming, because my boss was such a good guy, that he was going to get me on this. We had a grocery store chain, and I had gone in and I had to push, those silver oil pumps that you put into the refrigerant oil and you pump, right? And so that silver, it turns out, is the exact same metal color as the shopping cart buggies that they use. That that metal color. And when I put all my stuff out, I had it was nighttime, and I get out and I unload. I use their buggy, because I'm going to the mechanical room and I come back out. But I load everything back in the truck. Well, that silver blended in, and I lost my boss's oil pump.
Yeah.
And I went to look for it, the next day or whatever. And I said, I think I swung by the grocery store and they didn't have it or whatever. But I said, "Hey, boss, I'm so sorry. I lost your oil pump. It must have. He says, yeah. He said, well, that's okay. I'll put it on your tool account. I said, you're gonna make me pay for that? He says, you're the one who lost it. I didn't.
Yeah.
I thought, you selfish. All the money you make, I can't afford. This is a day's pay. So, basically, he was saying, he didn't say this, but you won't make that mistake again, will you? And so he didn't. He was a great guy, but he drew that line, and it was what it was,
But it's actually it's the opposite. It's just the same. Your initial reaction from that, that's people's typical initial reaction. But I think another part of the reason why when things like that happen and it stings is because you also, at the same time, you haven't been acknowledged or recognized enough for all the good things you did. You know what I mean? It's like, I made this mistake and now I get kind of get my butt chewed.
I was working on a unit one time, and it had one of the scuttle holes, right? The little hatches that you open up, but it was low, and the little permanent ladder, I mean, it really wasn't but just up a few rungs before you're there. Small roof, all the equipment's closed, and I'm there working, and in my peripheral vision, I see somebody's head just kind of, from behind there, just kind of pop up and look at me and go back down. And I could feel it, and I'm working, I learned. And it was that same boss. And he would come out and he would check up on you when you didn't know he was watching. He was, he would do that kind of stuff. And at first I was creeped out by it. But, when I was a boss later, I kind of got it, not that I did the same thing, because I didn't. But I probably should have in hindsight, some of the stuff I found out after the fact.
You ain't kidding.
Oh, man.
I'm telling you. I don't know what it is either, but there's, you have to, you want to meet all their needs, their basic needs, because anytime those get out of whack, like if they can't pay rent or something, then you're not even, like, they mentally cannot be at work. Like, they're not going to be engaged whatsoever.
Yeah.
They'll actively be disengaged.
Yeah.
So, but once the baseline needs are met, and
that's key,
considering like everything's going okay in their relationship at home and with their families, and nothing's like way out of whack, because those things throw anybody off kilter too. So you just have to keep that in mind. We're all people trying to do the best we can. So
yeah, but you mentioned that a couple of times. Once the baseline needs are met.
Yeah.
And one last story. I've got a customer. He's got a tech. He's trying to bring him along. He lets him drive his van home, and he calls and asks, "Can I drive my van to run to the store? I don't have a car." He couldn't afford it, and he doesn't want to help. But he allows him. Next thing you know, the guy's taking the van out on his own, at one point he's running a call and the guy's wife and baby are in the passenger seat, and it just continues down that path. But
I literally had that just a couple years ago. I had a guy first couple times call me, then before you know it, got in trouble because he was taking it all the time. Got in trouble, so then he started asking me again, and then he would ask to run to the store, but then he would drive 50 miles to another town over and I didn't say okay to drive 50 miles, out of your way. So it just taking advantage of the situation.
Well, yeah. Well, he
ultimately he went on to like steal gas.
He's got money. Kelly's a millionaire.
Yeah, I know. That's what they think. Yes.
Yeah. I had some of this stuff. Here's one last story. I said that last time, didn't I? A company I used to work for, I had very distinct black vans with gold lettering, and they got sued and they lost. And what had happened was one of his employees went to a convenience store, and it was one of those semi-hermetic refrigeration compressors, the little Copelands, I guess they were. And he replaced the compressor on the system, used the company's van, used the company's tools, probably the company's refrigerant, did everything, charged the lady, the owner of the store, and left. And it failed again, and he wouldn't stand behind it. So she sued the company and won because he was in the company van.
Those are exactly the type of risks that I'm talking about when I say every day it's a risk to be in business.
Sure. Yeah.
Things like that that just blindside you. You would never imagine something like that would even be possible. But that's where umbrella policies and being fully insured can help cover things like that. So
as we wind down, we wanted to leave you with that positive note as to why you get to do all of this.
Why it's so exciting to start your own business.
Yeah, right. I get to sit in court and get sued. And, I've been sued before, had nothing to do with it. Same, employee issue. But just like within life, there's a reason we do this. There's an upside. And that freedom, I mean, you talked about the goal, and your goal is to work yourself out of a job. Well, that may be you or may not be you. Maybe you want to work yourself into the freedom to just focus on that part of your business that you just love doing every day. For me,
that's the goal.
I love training day. Training day was Tuesdays were training day for me. And I pulled the whole company in there, and we go over, service calls from last week, and how did you handle this and everything? And we'd always had the big grease board. We do this training, and I just loved it, and the guys got off, and then I go back to work just doing the regular heating and air business. I thought maybe I ought to be a teacher, because it's so much funner. But anyway,
that's the whole goal, is to have the freedom to choose what you want to do, and to be able to do what you actually love doing, and all the stuff that you hate, like dealing with upset customers or running bids or doing maintenances because you're so sick of doing maintenances because you've done 1,000 of them in your career and you're just tired of them. Like whatever it is, the goal is to get those off your plate. And because when you take those things off your plate, you gain energy.
Exactly. I love that.
You can put that energy into something else. So
there's a lot of mindset shifts that had to come with this, guys, but here's one that everybody shares. All of us out there, we were trained, we were conditioned to be consumers. None of us were trained or conditioned to be business owners and factor all these, these risks that we have to come out of pocket with, these unforeseen occurrences that we have to be prepared for, these downturns, these situations, and what it actually costs to do what we do. And when you look at that from a consumer's standpoint, you feel guilty for charging more. And in essence, you probably still haven't charged enough because you haven't fully educated yourself. So I know Kelley does this. He does a great job at this. I love to talk about it as well, is making that transition, understanding your numbers, coming into an understanding where you can lay that $1,000 invoice down and say, this is fair and you feel good about that, as opposed to, what you used to, can sign here, with that incongruency of believing in what you're doing. And if it's important for you, it's just as important for those who represent you, your team.
Math is the path. Math is the path.
Math is the path. I like that. Well,
yeah, you've got to know some of your numbers. You got to have an idea if you're going to do anything with your business. You can't just say, oh, our average tickets are around 250.
Yeah,
they're around 350. They're around 400.
They're good. Well, find that on your P&L.
You know your average ticket. Period. You should know your average install. You should know how many installs you did each month, how many service calls you did each month.
Yeah.
Then it goes further. How many calls came in each month? What's your closing percentage? What's your gross profit, your total revenue, your gross profit, your net profit? You got to know all these things on a consistent basis. You have to be looking at them.
That's how department grows.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if possible, by truck. So, all that stuff. It's so important. It's a transition, guys, and it won't happen overnight. But it's just like this. When you sit down, you're listening to this, hopefully still, and you haven't ended it yet. There's a reason you'll pick up stuff. Go ahead and dedicate yourself to learning. If it's not with us, it's with, another program or something that you continue to educate yourself on this, because if you do not, and you do trial and error, you'll get it eventually, but you're just really holding yourself back. You're inflicting pain upon yourself. It's just not necessary. I know Kelley did, I can figure this out. I can do, I know this. And man, I'll never forget my first big training with somebody who knew what they were doing. I was humbled.
But your kids are, people think, oh yeah, I'll figure it out. Just what you said. But the whole time you're trying to figure it out, you got people waiting on you to figure it out. And that we get so wrapped up in ourselves and the business that you're not paying attention to everyone else around you who's waiting on you to figure this out.
Good point.
So it's not you, it's your employees, it's your family that you're ignoring because you're working nonstop. It's all of these things that you have to get this figured out sooner rather than later, because you can fix business stuff, but you ain't going to be able to fix that family thing.
Yeah.
You keep breaking agreements with your kids that you're going to lose respect with them. You're going to lose, lots of stuff. And so,
that was one of the things that I noticed in what I do. I get these little one-man shops that they won't make their appointments sometimes, or they'll disrespect in some way or another. But I was talking to a business owner this has been a few months back, and we got on a call together, and I didn't know how big he was, but he was so courteous and so respectful. And I asked him how many trucks he's running, and I thought he said 6. I said 6. Okay, so what do you, how many million, whatever. He goes, no, 66. I mean, this guy was a big deal.
Yeah.
And he treated me with more respect than, so many of these other guys. And so isn't that what's the word? Isn't that a characteristic that actually stayed with him and got him there to begin with? Because he did, he is respectful. He did keep his word. He did show up when he said he was going to show up. He didn't blow you off, Isn't that a sign of who he is and what got him there? I tell you, we really have to look at our own actions and be critical of ourselves and fix that and be our better version of ourselves if we're going to have success. Everybody wants to be, was it Tommy Mello or, and Victor Rancour and a lot of these guys out there, Louis Bruno, there's some great guys out there and they've done some terrific things. But I'm here to tell you, 99% of us listening are not wired the same way. We're wired a little bit different. We got to be our best version of ourselves, but our future looks different, and it should, because we're not we're not wanting the same things, right? We're not.
Yeah, and you can't let society, dictate what success is to you.
Yeah.
I like
I
talk about
love
this a
that.
lot.
I love
Like
that.
if what's successful to you is like living in a log cabin in the woods
Amen.
with no electricity, awesome. If you want a $5 million home and a Lamborghini, awesome. Like, you have the right to choose whatever you want and piss on anybody else. I don't care what they think, you shouldn't care either.
Yeah.
It's whatever makes you happy, period.
Amen.
I mean, as long as you're not, you're being ethical, moral, and
Well,
legal,
yes.
of course, don't get me wrong there. Like, and you're not hurting people.
Yes.
Like, I'm not going to sit here and condone, well, it's what I wanted because that's what made me happy. And you're out there destroying families' lives and stuff, screw that. That's not okay. But as long as you're not hurting people, then you have the right to choose what's going to make you happy and do what you want, and just be okay with that. And who cares what anyone else thinks?
Who was the sales trainer from Dallas, Texas? It was so big. Gosh, I can't remember the name. But I always remember his quote. He said, "You can have anything that you want in life if you help enough people get what they want." So it's about helping others, serving others, and doing it the right way, and take care of yourself along the way.
Earl Nightingale quote, I think.
Yeah, it was originally from him because there was a trainer. He's dead now, but big time. He put out, maybe it was through the Earl Nightingale business books or type, because did they continue
Ziglar, or like
Zig Ziglar? That's what it was. It was Zig Ziglar.
Yeah, it was Zig Ziglar.
Yeah. That's what it was. So, man, great job, Kelley. Your energy was awesome tonight. I guess that sore tooth wearing off was good for the podcast.
I don't know. I don't know, but
I don't know about that.
Got a lot of good subjects. I know we probably touched on a couple things that we've already touched on before, but also went deeper on a few things too. So
love it.
These are all things to consider.
Yeah, amen.
Running your business and just trying to be better. So.
Okay. Well, then, as we wind down, you got any last thoughts?
Exactly what Pete was talking about. You've got to improve yourself. So like every night when your head hits the pillow, what went well today? And think about, was I a little better today than I was yesterday? If you did that every day and you strove to be just better a little bit, like, and we're all guilty of I'm not standing on a soapbox here. I'm saying, like, when I that's what I love about sharing and teaching. It's because I get to remind myself of these types of things.
Hey, man, I do that too.
Yeah.
And that again, it goes both ways, because I'm listening to my customers complain about the work, and then I'll start having these memories of all the problems that I had to. It's what we focus on. Listen, start your day with gratitude. One of the best tips: when you wake up in the morning, start with yourself. I've got 20/20 vision. Well, I don't, but I've got my vision. I've got my health. I'm in good condition. Maybe you're doing your morning walk, whatever your routine is. Start from yourself, expand out. I love my wife. I love my family. I love my children. I've got this business. I've got these employees. I've got this. I'm so forth. And compare yourself. There's a great book called Living with Death in Mind. And this person was visiting all these terminally ill people. And then he starts looking at his problems and saying, I don't have any problems. Be grateful, keep it positive, start the day with that, and you'll enjoy your day so much better. But on behalf of Kelley, McKay, Pete Ramsey here, you guys keep that truck between the ditches. Be careful out there and go make some money.